Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Urvashi and I work as a professional trainer and I provide trainings in front-end development technologies, that is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, JS, and Redux. So welcome to the fifth video of JavaScript of Let's Crack It with Urvashi series. In today's video, we are going to talk about very important topic, that is functions and events in JavaScript. So whenever you visit any website, you click on sign in button, sign up button, add to cart button. So there is a button. So there's a function that is called behind it. So whenever you click on these buttons, there's a function that is called behind. So that is what we are going to do in JavaScript today. And you will literally get a real-time feel when you will be learning this topic. You will get a real-time design idea like how those buttons and how those buttons are created and how those functions are linked to those buttons. So that is what we are going to do in today's video, functions and events in JavaScript. Before we go to the video, don't forget to check out my interview preparation material. I've added it in the description below, so do check that out. Now let's get to the video.
Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to see what are functions and events in JavaScript. We are going to start with functions first. A JavaScript function is a block of code designed to do something or perform a task. So basically, we are going to create functions so that we can have a modular approach in our code. That means we are going to break our code in the form of functions and we are going to call those functions wherever we need it. So basically, when I say call those functions, means calling that block of code whenever we need it. This will enhance code reusability. For example, I have to create a logic for addition of two numbers. So instead of going to write the same logic for addition of two numbers again and again, I'm going to create a function, I'm going to add in my logic there, and then I'm going to call that function wherever I need it. Just like your variables, we store a value inside a variable so that I can use it from anywhere I need it. For example, I want a value 18 inside my code 10 times. So instead of writing that 18 again and again, I will store that in a variable and then going to use it. Just like that, functions are also like variables only, where we are going to add some block of code which will be executed whenever we are going to call our function. So it is going to perform a task. Of more real-time examples like in Amazon. When you log in Amazon, there when you click on login, there must be a function which is being called. Maybe I have created a login function. Now, if you have seen in Amazon, you can log in from top bar, navigation bar, you also get login. And when you add some product in a cart, at that time also you need to log in before actually doing the payment. So at that time, they didn't create the same logic of login twice. So they created the same logic and then called it from two places, the same logic from the two places. So this is how these functions are going to help us. So we can call it invoking from anywhere throughout our code wherever we need it. And naming convention for functions goes same like variable name, just like we saw in the variables video. How to do the naming convention for variables, we do follow the same rules of functions as well. And this is the way we declare a function. So firstly, we have function keyword, then space, and then the function name, and then round braces, and then the curly braces. In that curly braces, we put a code, block of code. Now, after a function is created, it is not executed whenever the line of execution or function will come. It will be executed only when you call this. So there are three ways we can call our function. So function calling has three ways when an event occurs. So that means whenever there is an event is nothing but a happening by the user. We will cover the events in detail. For now, consider event is some happening which is being done by the user. Let's say user click on a button. So that is an event. That time your function can be called. It can be invoked from the JavaScript code. That means the place where we are writing a JavaScript code, the same place we can invoke this JavaScript function. And then self-invoking, that means automatically invoking function. That means it can be invoked on its own from your function. So there are three ways we can invoke our function. Next comes the code reusability. Code reusability basically, definitely as I said, if we are going with modular approach by using these functions, now instead of writing that common logic again and again, I'm going to write that common logic in one place and then I'm going to call that function from wherever I need it. So that is what code reusability is. And definitely we can use our code many times with different arguments. That is basically through the parameterized functions. We are going to see that as well through our code. So let's go to Visual Studio Code. So here I have two files, one is HTML and then I have one JS file for my function. So first of all, in function, we are going to see how we can declare a function or create a function. So declaration and creation of function. As I said, we use function keyword, then function name, let's say add, round braces, round parenthesis also we can call it, space, curly braces. So this is how I can create a function. And here we write code to be executed. The common logic that we are going to create a function for is going to be executed here. Now let's say I'm just adding some random logic. Let's say variable. Let's say where sum is equal to 0. Then I'm saying sum equal to 2 plus 3. And then I'm just saying console.log of sum. We are going to save it. Now let's run this. Now we'll click on this. So here if I go to console, I will not see anything here. The reason is the function is not executed. So whenever the line of code will come here on this, it will not be executed because this is just a function declaration. To call this function, we need to invoke it from somewhere. As I said, there are three ways to do so. So the very first way is from JavaScript code itself. So I'll just write function name. That's it. Now if I see the output, I can see 5 over here. That is 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. Now here, I call my function from here. So the line of execution is something like it will come to line number 12. Then after line number 12, it will go to line number 4. And then this function will be executed. Now I can call it from anywhere. From here as well. Twice. Now if I run this, I can see 5 twice. Now if you see, these are static values, hard-coded values which I have set. But definitely in real time, we have real-time values. So now for that, we have parameterized function, where we are going to set arguments and receive the parameters in the functions. So I will just create a function, let's say subtract. And from here, I'm going to call my function. So my subtract function I've called from here. So from here, we are going to pass those values, let's say 20, 10. And once you pass these values, you need, these are called arguments you are passing. And we are going to receive them as the parameters over here. Now here, you have to give some name to these values. Basically, you assign some variable name to these values, let's say a comma b. That means throughout this block of code, I can access these values a comma b. I can't access this a and b outside this function now because these are in the function scope. These are the parameters of this function. So you can simply use this inside this block of code. Now I will just say, let's say subtract is equal to a minus b. And I will simply say console.log of sum. So basically I'm passing arguments and these arguments will be received here as the parameters, that is a comma b. A is going to be 20 and b is going to be 10. So these are the values which are being passed and the order they are passed, they will be received here in that order. So a will be having the value 20 and b will be having the value 10. Now let's see the output. So here you can see 10. 20 minus 10 is 10. Now, this is what we call parameterized function. Now I can pass some more values. Let's say 30, 20 or 30, 10. So this is called reusability. So I'm reusing the same logic again and again. That means this is the logical part that I'm going to use again by passing the different arguments. So I'm passing different arguments and getting the different result. If I refresh, I can see 20. 30 minus 10 is 20. Now we can pass a function as a value. That means we can store a function in a variable. This is how we can do it. So I will just create a function over here. Let's say function multiply like this. Here I'm going to create a variable. Let's say var mul is equal to multiply. So here I'm passing this function as a value. So this is what we call passing a function as a value. So whenever you will see such statement, you always have to return something. That means your function is always going to return something. Whenever you pass function as a value. Whenever you pass function as a value, there will be a return statement in function. That means your function is supposed to return something. So let's say I'm passing 2 comma 4 from here, and these values will be received here as x comma y. Now I will write a logic. Let's say var mul is equal to x star y. Definitely we can do console.log of mul here as well. But what we want this function to return something that is going to store here. So I will just return mul. Now if I do console.log of mul, you will see the values here. So now whatever the value you're returning will get stored inside this variable. Let me change the name. So whatever the value that m is going to return will be stored in this mul. So this is the practice we need whenever you want a value outside a function, whenever you want to access a value outside this function. Because here if you guys see, you can access value inside this function but not outside. But here if you want to access some result outside the function, then you go for this approach. Let's see the output. So here we can see 8. 2 into 4 is 8. So this is how I can pass a function as a value. Now next we have self-invoking functions. We can call them self-invoking or anonymous functions as well. In this is the syntax: round braces, function keyword, round braces, curly braces, and outside this round braces. So the reason we call it as self-invoking because we don't have to invoke it or call it from anywhere. So whenever the line of execution will be 36, it will be executed on its own. And anonymous because they don't have a name. So that is the reason we call them as anonymous functions as well. So self-invoking function or anonymous functions. They're called on its own. You don't have to invoke it from anywhere. And they don't have a name. So this is the syntax: round braces, function keyword, round braces, curly braces, and outside round. Now here I can just write console.log of, let's say, math.py. That's it. And here let's say I'm adding, okay, let's see the output for this first. So if I refresh, I can see this is the value of pi. That means my output is correct over here. Now I can have a parameterized self-invoking function as well. That means I can send parameters from here, let's say 2, 5, and I will receive them here. Let's say num underscore num2. So I will receive these arguments here as parameters like this. And here I can directly write console.log of, let's say, num plus num underscore 2. So that means you can have parameters for the self-invoking functions as well. Now if I refresh, I can see the value 7. 2 plus 5 is 7. That means my output is correct. Now we have seen two ways to call a function. Very first is to JavaScript code, passing it as a value, and second is self-invoking function. We have seen parameterized function as well and code reusability as well. Now, third thing is events. That is, how can I call them through events? So before that, let's see what are events. So HTML event can be something that your browser does or a user does. So there are two category of events, browser events and user events. The user is the person who is using the application. So that means some action, some happening by the user. So event is nothing but a happening or something a user has done. Event handlers and event listeners, we have these two important terms in this. Event handler is something which is nothing but your events that are being called, let's say on click, on double click, on mouse over, on change, on submit. An event listener is nothing but you can say a method which is going to listen to our events. We always assign them like a HTML attribute. So in this opening tag, we insert these attributes, that is event attributes there. To assign events to HTML elements, you can use event attributes. And examples for browser, as I said, is going to be onload, which where user input is not required. And when it's come to user events, user input is required. So event handlers can be used to handle or verify input, especially form validation. These are very important. User action, whenever your user is doing something. Even clicking on a button is an event. And browser actions. That is the actions by the browser, like onload. So these are the events we have, and this is what events are going to do. So in a very layman language, events is nothing but a happening, a action that is being occurred by either a user or a browser. Now let's see through the code. So here I have this JavaScript file. Now in HTML file, we are going to create these events because as I said, they are passed as a HTML attribute inside opening tag. So I will just create a button over here. So let's say button name is show date. Now in the opening tag, add directly on click. So there are so many events. I'm going to start with on click. So let's say display date is equal to some method. So basically is equal to, you have to include some method. So this is the syntax: on click event name, that this is called event handler, is equal to string. In string, basically you have to include the function name. So you just have to call a function here. And this function has to be present inside this JavaScript file. So we are doing events here. So I'll just create a function, display date, like this. So I have this function to be called from here as well. Now here I will just say var, let's say d is equal to new date, like this. I will simply say console.log of d. Now we will save it. If I refresh, here you can see this button, and when I click on this button, I am able to see the date over here. That means this is a correct usage of events and functions. So I am able to invoke a function through this event, that is on click. We have a lot of events like on double click, on mouse over, then we have on submit, on change, on click is one of them, on double click. So all these are events that we have in JavaScript. We can do a lot with this. We can actually add CSS through our JavaScript code. For example, on click of this button, I want background of my document dot body dot style to be some different color instead of white. Let's say style dot background. So it is going to be, let's say, pink. So you can change CSS through JavaScript as well. So if I just save it, so if I refresh, background is white. When I click on this, background will become pink in color. So this is how I can change the CSS through the JavaScript code. I am not using CSS to change the styling. I'm using JavaScript. So through JavaScript, I'm able to change the CSS. So this is what you have in events and functions in JavaScript. So this is what we have in events and functions in JavaScript. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching my videos, especially sharing so much of love on this Let's Crack It with Urushi series. As a creator, you really need a lot of motivation to go ahead because it obviously takes a lot of efforts to, filter out the concepts, which is important, which can add a lot of value to your knowledge. So this is the main idea of creating this series. Like I said earlier, is for inspiring developers and the working professionals so they can learn everything for almost free. So you really don't have to pay hefty amount of lakhs or thousands of money for learning something which is your passion. Maybe if you want to go into IT, this series will definitely help you out. So I just want to say thank you, and if you really like my content, if you think my content is useful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my channel. Do share it with all the people you feel really need to learn, even not just the front end developers or web developers. The core concepts that I've covered, like loops, if else, all those will help you out. As even if you're working with other technology like Java, Python, even in that case, these core concepts will help you to these videos will help you to understand those programming fundamentals core concept. So I just want to say thank you, and do watch my videos in future. So a lot of different type of content is coming up in future, maybe something related to interview as well. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching my video.